This is 70s Sitcom Flashback, the show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. Your hosts are Robbie and Terry, both 15. Every week they break it down so you actually get it.
Flashback, the show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. I'm Terry.
And I'm Robbie, and today we're talking about a show that basically rewrote the rules for women on TV, The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
This show ran from 1970 to 1977, 7 seasons of pure gold set in a Minneapolis TV newsroom.
And it wasn't just entertaining, it was genuinely revolutionary. Mary Richards was a single woman in her 30s who wasn't desperately hunting for a husband.
Which sounds obvious now, but in 1970 that was basically a radical political statement disguised as a comedy.
The network was so nervous they asked the writers to make Mary a divorcee because they thought audiences would assume she dumped someone wonderful.
Which is both hilarious and kind of sad. They ended up making her someone who just left a long relationship. Problem solved. Everyone relax.
The show won 29 Emmy Awards over its run. 29, that's not a record, that's a demolition.
And it wasn't just Mary, the whole cast was incredible. Ed Asner as the gruff but secretly soft Lou Grant, Ted Knight as the gloriously clueless Ted Baxter.
Ted Baxter is honestly one of the greatest comedic creations in television history, confident about everything, correct about almost nothing.
Gavin MacLeod played Murray, the sardonic writer, and then of course there's Rhoda.
Valerie Harper as Rhoda Morgenstern, Mary's neighbor and best friend, was so beloved she got her own spin-off in 1974.
Rhoda ran for 4 seasons, which tells you everything about how well that character connected with audiences.
The show was created by James L. Brooks and Alan Burns, and they had a very clear vision. Real adult problems, real adult comedy, no laugh track telling you when to chuckle.
Well, it did have a laugh track actually, but the jokes were sharp enough that you kind of forgot it was there.
Fair correction, but the writing room was unusually thoughtful. They tackled equal pay, workplace sexism, dating after 30, all without getting preachy.
Mary once found out a male colleague made more money than her doing the same job. Lou's explanation was not exactly airtight.
And the show didn't pretend the conversation was fully resolved either. It just said, yes, this is real, and yes, it's absurd.
That honesty is a big reason critics consider it one of the greatest sitcoms ever made. It still holds up remarkably well.
The opening credits alone became iconic. Mary throwing her hat in the air on a Minneapolis street corner.
And the theme song, You're Gonna Make It After All. It's basically a tiny pep talk set to music.
Sonny Curtis wrote that song, and it went through revisions during production. Early versions were apparently much softer and blander.
Hard to imagine a bland version of that song. It's like imagining a shy firework.
The Minneapolis setting was also unusual. Most sitcoms defaulted to New York or Los Angeles, and here's this show saying, actually, the Midwest has stories worth telling.
And WJM-TV, the fictional newsroom, became its own character, perpetually struggling in the ratings, constantly making poor decisions.
Which made it a perfect mirror for workplace comedy. Everyone who's ever had a chaotic job recognized something in that newsroom.
Cloris Leachman and Betty White both joined the cast in later seasons and both became fan favorites almost immediately.
Betty White played Sue Ann Nivens, the aggressively cheerful, happy homemaker host who was deeply, delightfully unhinged behind closed doors.
Betty White was already a television veteran by then, but Sue Ann kind of unlocked a whole new gear for her comedically.
The series finale in 1977 is considered one of the best series finales in TV history, full stop.
Without spoiling it for anyone who hasn't seen it, and you really should see it, it's genuinely emotional and completely earned.
Mary Tyler Moore herself had already proven herself on the Dick Van Dyke Show in the 60s, but this show was entirely hers in a way that earlier role wasn't.
She was a producer on the show too, not just the star. Emtermiter Mammonprizes, her production company, went on to create Lou Grant, WKRP in Cincinnati, and Hill Street Blues.
So the show's influence didn't stop when it ended. It basically launched an entire production house that shaped television through the 1980s.
One funny behind-the-scenes fact: the hat Mary throws in the credits was thrown so many times during filming that strangers kept stopping to stare.
A whole crowd gathered, assuming something exciting was happening, which is somehow very on brand for a show about a TV news crew.
If you want to understand why 1970s TV was genuinely great and not just nostalgic comfort food, start here.
7 seasons, 29 Emmys, a spin-off, a production empire, and one very airborne hat. Not bad for a show they almost didn't greenlight.
The Mary Tyler Moore Show proved that audiences were smarter than networks assumed and that women's stories had been undersold for decades.
And it did all that while being genuinely, consistently funny, which is honestly the harder part of that achievement.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Go find an episode, any episode, and you'll understand immediately why we're still talking about this show 50+ years later.
Next week, we'll be digging into another classic that shaped the decade, so keep that dial right where it is. See you next week on 70s Sitcom Flashback.